Hey guys, as you saw from the title and the footage I've been showing, I believe this is the best build for Barbarian. At least, and I think overall, just the best build in the beta. This is great movement speed, it's a great boss killer, it's great at clearing trash, and it's super, super tanky. You will never die. So, I'm going to first get into the skills abilities, then we're going to talk about how the build works through rotation, and then I'm going to showcase you just me running through this dungeon. So, let's get into it. So first, starting with the skills tree, we're going to start with the basic skills. You have two options here. You have Flay and you have Lunging Strike. So the reason you would pick these two and not these two is because you want a bleed effect because it synergizes with a talent that will get further down the tree. So all you have to keep in mind is that we need a bleed effect. I go with Lunging Strike, and then I take the talent that gives me 400 bleeding damage over 5 seconds, just 20% of your weapon damage. I also use this dual wield because it attacks much faster. So you will take this one. And the reason I pick Lunging Strike over Flay is just because it has initial physical damage, so I don't have to wait for a target to bleed out or anything. It also does more damage overall. The only reason you would take Flay over Lunging Strike is because Flay actually has a 10% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. But I hate waiting 5 seconds for a bleed, so I'm just taking Lunging Strike. It also is a great movement option. You can actually teleport through crowds of enemies using Lunging Strike. It's really, really good. Next, moving on to our core skills. This is going to be our main damage dealer, Hammer of the Ancients. This next talent makes you gain 3% more Fury for 5 seconds for each enemy damaged by Hammer of the Ancients, stacks up to 10 times. So basically, you get 30% more Fury generation for 5 seconds after you use this on a crowd of enemies. Really, really good. Hammer of the Ancients deals 1% additional damage for each point of Fury you had when using it. So this synergizes really well with plus Fury on gear, but also baseline, it just does 100% more damage at max Fury, which you're always going to be at max Fury because of the affixes that we're looking at and the aspects on our legendaries. We'll get into that a little bit later. Next, our shouts. We're going to be having Rallying Cry. This is really, really good for movement speed, and this next talent guarantees you Unstoppable. So it's really good as a CC break if you're stunned or frozen. You can break out of it. It's really good for running through enemies, a crowd of mobs because Unstoppable. It gives you 30% movement speed, 50% resource generation for 6 seconds. Really, really good. I believe this is probably going to be mandatory throughout the game for Barb, just because of the movement speed. Next, our brawling skills. I take 3 out of 3 swiftness, just because I hate being slow in this game. Barb is so slow. This is really, really good talent. 12% movement speed is really good. Plus, there's nothing else I would really pick here, simply because we only have 6 slots. I take Leap for movement, although you can swap it out for Warcry. If you're trying to kill bosses or you're having trouble killing elites, you can pick the Warcry and go into the Berserking talent. Gives you Berserking for 4 seconds when you use Warcry. Really, really good. Plus 25% increased damage for 5 seconds. Great. Next, onto our weapon mastery. We're going to take Death Blow, just because it's really, really good for one-shotting smaller minions. Death Blow deals 100% increased damage to bosses, so it's not useless on bosses. And then this one, if Death Blow damaged at least one enemy, gain 20 Fury. This is really, really good for generating Fury very fast. So you can just use this over and over and over on smaller minions, and Death Blow, if this kills an enemy, its cooldown is reset. So you just keep using it on small enemies until you gain max Fury, and then you just keep rolling. You pull your Fury until a big crowd of mobs, or until you find an elite, and then you one-shot it. These two picks right here, I just random. I had nowhere else to put them. So I believe this is the best option. Deal 3% increased damage to close enemies, gain 2% distant damage reduction. These are just fillers. 3% increased critical strike chance against immobilized, stunned, or slowed enemies. This one's pretty good, actually. I just couldn't find enough points to make it work to fit into here. And one way we can always have something crowd controlled or slowed is this one right here. Your bleeding effect slows enemies by 10%. And that's going to be coming from a basic skill, lunging strike or flay. So this is going to be a 10% slow, so it makes all of our affixes on weapons, like plus damage to slowed enemies, or on rings, plus damage to slowed enemies or crowd controlled enemies. This is really good. And this also synergizes with this, so you get 3% more crit against those minions. And next, on our ultimate skills, I have Wrath of the Berserker, simply because it grants you Unstoppable and Berserking for 5 seconds, and for the next 10 seconds, anytime you hit with a basic skill, you gain Berserking. This next talent gives you 20% movement speed and 30% Fury generation. And this one, every 50 Fury you spend, you increase Berserk's damage bonus by 25%. This is really, really good because we're going to be using Hammer of the Ancients. We're just going to be pulling a bunch of Fury, spamming it over and over. So this is what you want. The reason I picked Wrath of the Berserker is because it scales much better with Hammer of the Ancients than these two right here. So I believe this one's better. So many people are going to say that this is only good because you farmed a bunch of gear, you have a bunch of legendary aspects, this is a bad build, on launch it's going to be terrible, you can't level with this, it's not realistic, blah blah blah. Well, that's partially true, but I believe this will be very realistic to level with on launch. I think this will be the best Barbarian build, if not just the best build in the game. So, the only aspect you need, the only legendary you need, is this one right here. Each point of Fury you generate while at maximum Fury grants your next core skill 8% increased damage up to 240%. This is an insane multiplier. Insane. 240% on your core spender is insane. So, if you're at max Fury and you use your core spender, you only need to attack 5 times to get the max benefit of this. 5 times with your resource generator. That's crazy. And the stats on this weapon, on this two-handed slashing weapon, do not matter. All you need is the legendary aspect. You can imprint it on here at level 1, for example, and you can use it until level 100. You will not be using this weapon. The only thing that matters is the aspect on it. You do not have to replace this. Same thing with these right here. These ones, I just have some basic damage aspects on it. Pretty good, but you don't need them. You don't even need the damage on these. These do not matter at all. The only reason you have these is so you can use your basic skills, which give you fear. That's it. And it's to proc a bleed. Like, these two do not matter. You don't even need these. I could have level 1 weapons here, here, here. As long as they have the aspect on this one, it's fine. It'll work. The only thing that you'll have to replace as you level is your two-hand bludgeoning weapon. So your two-handed mace, as you level, every couple levels, just go spend your obols. Go spend your obols that you'll get from doing quests, from doing events and stuff while you're leveling, and you're gonna replace your mace. That's it. You do not need this aspect on it. As far as defensive aspects go, the only one that I'd be looking out for while you're leveling is this one, but this one's for all classes, really. I feel like this is going to be pretty mandatory for all classes. You heal life per second, depending on how many close enemies there are. This one rolled kind of bad, 46. But yeah, it's crazy. This one right here is the next one I would be looking for. Hammer of the Ancients quakes outwards, dealing 48% of its damage to enemies. It rolls 32 to 50%. This was a pretty high roll. What if you get this aspect, you can also just throw it on a pair of gloves with plus to Hammer of the Ancients, and you don't need to replace it ever again. You don't need to touch it ever again. These aspects, the only thing you will have to change while you're leveling is this one right here. So that covers the realistic portion of the build and the leveling portion. So we're just going to get into the rest of this build. Right here on my boots. For movement speed, while unstoppable for 2 seconds after, you gain 22% increased movement speed and can move freely through enemies. So this will proc off the unstoppable we get from Rallying Cry, which lasts for 6 seconds. So for 8 seconds, because it has 2 seconds after, we'll have 22% additional movement speed on top of the 30% from Rallying Cry for 6 seconds. So this one also gives us unstoppable for 5 seconds, our Wrath of the Berserker. So for 7 seconds, we're going to be having 22% additional movement speed. So this next one, damaging an elite, you get a barrier, scales with the item level. You'll find this, it's kind of a filler, doesn't matter. So onto the neck, skills deal 51% increased damage based on primary resource when cast. So since we're always going to be at max fury, because we're going to be wanting to go over the fury cap to proc this, we're just getting an extra 51% damage. If you ever find this, like I said, you can just throw it on your necklace, never have to replace it. This one, after sweeping weapons 10 times, I don't really use this one that much. I just really had nothing else to put. It's kind of a decent skill, I guess. I would replace it with something else, but yeah. Next, you deal increased damage for each second you stand still, up to 30%. This one, again, was just kind of filler. I don't really like standing still. Maybe if there's a boss waiting to spawn, or versus the world boss, it's pretty good. Other than that, this one's not very necessary. This next one, each point of fury generated while at maximum fury grants 2.6 fortify. So whenever we get fortify, we will be having 25% damage reductions because of the blue gems in our gear here, along with the 10% damage reduction that fortify gives you anyways. So 35% damage reduction flat out just from these. Plus, we also have 75% damage reduction from our armor. So basically, our fortify reduction, our armor, combined with our life per second when we're surrounded by enemies, basically makes this build unkillable. Now, I'm going to get into the showcase of the build. I'm just going to run through this dungeon real quick. I'm just going to try and go as fast as I can, and you guys get to see. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it was informative. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments.